Welcome back. So this is going to be part two of the wisteria, the Japanese wisteria mini tree bonsai. So in the first video, I kind of walked you through drawing the image of the bonsai bear, which is great. And the book that I referred to that these images came out were from the Chicago Botanical Garden. And it must have been an exhibit, bonsai, a patient art. So not all bonsai trees are going to work to really study the trees because they're actually an art form and they're wired and twisted to create these beautiful trees that can be, 100 years old. This one I think was 40 according to the book when it was published. And then next to it in the book is the tree in full bloom. So we want to attempt to learn about it in bloom. So part of me wants to study what do these wisteria flowers look like. And so I did find an image here. So it's kind of like a two petal piece. You can see it's curved, it's kind of cupped, and the same here. And then this is the calyx, the pedicel, the stem, the fused stems that are together, which is the pistil. This one, it says, is a free stamen, so I don't know too much botanically about it. The inside, the keel, and there's like a wing that covers it, so maybe it's on the back side. So it gives me an idea of what am I seeing, and that comes from botanical training. Basically you had to see it to draw it. But to study in nature journaling, we don't have to go quite as far. But I guess my approach is still like this. So this is a great book. It's called The Botanical Garden. It was at a used bookstore for $15. It's volume one, Trees and Shrubs. It's by Roger Phillips and Martin Ricks, which are known for photography books. At one time, this book sold for, I think, $150. So this was a great find for $15. But what I like, it doesn't have every plant or tree in the volumes. There's two volumes. But look at this. So it shows me the pods, the buds, the petals. Here's those two petals and how they're kind of attached. And it comes from the legume family. So it's like pea, leguminosae. Here's the flowers growing on the branch. I can notice colors. Here they're more mauve. Here they're more purple with some white. And here's a pure white. Let's see, up here are the oval, but oval tipped points. They're kind of rounded up at the top, and they are alternate. They're very close. I'm pretty sure that would be considered alternate leaves. Maybe not. Maybe they are opposite. Okay, I'm going to change that. Opposite. So they're coming off the pedestal or the branching, and the leaves come out opposite. Sometimes, it's kind of every other one. So you pay attention. Here, it must get really thick and viney. So this gave me a lot of information that I can't see. If the tree was hanging or in front of me, I could go up and snap some pictures, or maybe I'd be able to take a little piece of the flowers. So this is just more helpful for me to see it. But when I look at the actual bonsai mini tree of it, what do I notice? So it's weeping, it's hanging down, it's beautiful. There are some branches and many clusters of the leaves kind of dangling together, a canopy, umbrella shape, and then there's this big branch and its supportive branches where that umbrella shape was hanging from. So when I look at it out, if this was in front of me, I wouldn't be painting every little blossom. That's just impossible. So how do I set this up? So I look at the shape of the tree, and obviously we said it was like an umbrella type. This seems higher and curves. So I started, this is a divider, which I mentioned in the previous video. And what's nice is it has two like compass-like points for measure. And I decided to measure here. And then I just take my pencil at the end of the points and I mark it. And a lot of times you can find these in art stores, sometimes by the drafting supplies, but they really come in handy. And what's nice is they just don't spread apart really fast. And I moved down to take the like this wide, because it's here, and then it becomes much wider, just like we did it on the branches of the non-blossoming tree. And I marked that. And then what I did was I kind of connected the sweep, the shape. This kind of comes up, kind of cloud-like. I don't really see too many holes. This kind of really goes off and drapes up there. So there is kind of like a sky hole here. The rest of it is pretty thick. It's very dense. So I also measured the length of the trunk. So I'm assuming it's running all the way pretty much up to the top if you look at this piece. Now, from season to season, the bonsai artist might have, changed things. So this was my measurement. It kind of gives me maybe a center point for the tree. But if I look at the image, it kind of leans. It's slightly moved. I think the photographer might have moved the tree for maybe a better view. Maybe it had to do with, light. But it gives me a starting point. This tree kind of follows it. It's got some bumps. It doesn't look as gnarly as the other, but like I said, it may have been moved, turned a little bit for kind of a good photo. So this is the dirt in the pot. So you can kind of make that interesting. You could measure the distance. You could, some artists will measure the trunk width, but if you're doing it as a nature journal, just observe it. You can note those things. And it's interesting because this is not the same dish that was in it. I wonder if They actually used a different specimen. Okay. And then, of course, it's kind of cut off there. So that kind of gives me that. I also mentioned, using a magnifying glass, and I do have some different ones. This one has a lot of paint on it. So I'm just gonna kind of clean it. It helps. And let's see if you can just see more details. So it looks like some of these branches are kind of coming out in front. A little bit harder to tell, but that's why I like the trunk, because the trunk showed me more information than I may have seen. Looks like there might be a split there. And then maybe a single line can represent this, right? Because we want to keep the energy of the tree, but there'll always be, the botanical or scientific artists that really wanted exacting. I mean, that's what we were taught in classes of botanical illustration. And it showed me a lot about when I'm drawing, maybe certain things that maybe I don't have to pay attention to or put into this image. And then there are lots of different trees. So I think that could be implied. The wisteria hangs down. Let's just take a look at this. And I have painted these in Sumi style. So this is kind of important that the new buds are at the bottom. So they're smaller and then they keep getting bigger and the petioles get bigger. And this is what it hangs from these thin branches. And then when they bloom, obviously they turn into the big flowers that we were talking about. So sometimes when I'm out in the field, I might draw it. I might zoom in and put some of those pieces on the side. And other times, maybe not. So let's just kind of get this a little more even. So a little bit of measuring, a little bit about seeing, all important, right? And you can always use your ruler for measurement as well. So I'm looking at my trunk, looks maybe a little bit longer right now, but it's going to need the wisteria kind of covering it. So this would make a nice gouache painting if you had gouache colors. I pulled out two colors, so I'm kind of veering a little bit from my six tube watercolors with six tubes, which is really my signature class. It's really using what we call two primary sets. One happens to be cools, which have more blue undertones in the yellow, red, and blue. And then the warm primary set, which really has more red in the yellow, red, and blue set. And with that, you can pretty much make so many different colors. So it looks like there's a pink. It looks kind of white. It also has some plum shade in it. It looks a little darker on the video. And I'm just going to move that out of the way so we can see it. So I picked out these two colors. They are both Daniel Smith. This is Rose of Ultramarine, and the other one is actually called Wisteria. Surprise. So I've never painted in my journal Wisteria. And I always activate. So what I am using is a new product I found. It's a plastic seashell, but I think it's kind of fun for overflow of paint. So before I paint, I always activate my colors with a spritz of water. And you can see it kind of picks up that plum. If I was using my six tubes, I would take my cool red and my cool blue, and I would make more of a red violet kind of color, a blue red violet. Now, the wisteria is beautiful. This particular one has a little bit more of that like winey color, I would call it. So I can try on my palette mixing them, and let's see, it might be a nice middle range of color. So that kind of is a nice plum shade. Of course, it looks deeper on the video. So let's go ahead and maybe start. So, in watercolors, we always start from light to dark. Um, Maybe as we imply some color, then we can add white and opaque white on top. If you were drawing all this, then you could paint around the white spots, but I'm not going to do that. Nope. So I'm looking at this going, I wonder if I have a little bit too much trunk here. Let's see. So it'd be helpful probably to measure. Okay. So I'm going to start with the wisteria color and kind of just dabbing this around. And you want a couple maybe colors in between or to show some color changes, some value change. So I'm pretending I'm just kind of twisting the brush. So I have these little wisteria blossoms coming up. And I don't think you have to be, too perfect on this. But this could take, right, a long time to paint these. I do think that keeping some white space in between will be beneficial. And how do we show movement? Well, we move the petals so that they're going maybe in slightly different directions. And this is a number 4 round. There we go. I think it'd be fun to do a series of trees. A lot of the ID books show a picture of the bark, a picture of the leaf, a picture of the flower. But you can't really see like the trunk like this particular one and then see it in bloom. So I think this is kind of a unique book that way, at least for what I'm thinking would be fun to study. So let me know what your favorite tree is and if you've ever tried to draw a bonsai tree, if you think, if you try it and you think this would be helpful to the study of painting or observing trees. And I'll post, these on different social medias too, so that you can see things. Okay, so we're going to continue with this, and then we will add our greens and we can put in the trunk. So, something I've learned in sumi painting, it's sometimes you start with the brush, but then you keep going until the paint kind of gets lighter. Can you see how much lighter it is? Obviously, the mixture of the plum was there, but that helps give some depth to what you're painting as well. But this is such a gorgeous, gorgeous color. And then, maybe along the sides, you you know, might have some of the wisteria flowers kind of sticking out. Looks a little more natural. They're much smaller than I'm making them, but as I layer, I can go smaller on top because this will help color and fill in the white areas. And if I was out in the field painting this, I would need to have some time because there are so many flowers. But maybe I would just draw up uh, the flowers, or if I was in a garden. So many people have these types of wisterias too. Kind of pops it. But as far as nature journaling, I could add and zoom in a little bit. Um, okay, let's put this so it kind of pops it, keeps that umbrella going. And on this one, I actually did like more ink to it, so we can put in some color, um, mix up some yellow ochre, start with really light yellow orange, and add blue to dull it. Or if you have some yellow ochre, that in. Let's just kind of start getting in some color. So hopefully this will help you, see the tree. Because sometimes, it could be in a garden, but in a spot that maybe you can't get super close to. Pictures help, lots of pictures. Now, really need to, see, bring in some, and these look much smaller. Remember that drawing I showed that they dangle, but they get like maybe bigger as they go off, but these are all kind of tiny. So I would look at my reference, my photos, to help me understand what I'm seeing. Could even take some notes. Okay? But I read that they don't smell. For some reason, I thought wisteria had a really nice scent to it. Just make sure your paint is fluid. And I wouldn't fuss too much because when we fuss on this type of painting, I had a weeping cherry, which I've mentioned. When I lived in Pittsburgh, it was an old weeping cherry, but it was just gorgeous. It had a very rugged trunk, but when it bloomed in the spring, it was just stunning. It was just so gorgeous. I'm sure I have some pictures of it, and you can see kind of the movement. So I'm really just working with the wisteria mostly right now. We'll see if we can finish this. See if we can kind of take out some of the white. Now this is, there are branches and there are big stems. So if I look, not branch, but off of the trunk, you see these lots of these things. And one of the branches here really extends out, which gives the wisteria a place to really branch and grow. So I guess this was part of the aesthetics of what this bonsai artist wanted to keep. Right. So I think it's more of olivey green leaves. However, in this botanical book, let's see, I lost the page. Let me just look it up real quick. I thought it was a brighter green. Lost it, but I saved it. So I'm curious if any of you have any really good picture books like these that you use to help you see what you're drawing. Here we go. So here's the wisteria. So it shows kind of some olive, and then there are some blue green leaves, kind of a mixture. Um, I might start with a sap green, and then I can always add some blues to it. But it seems like the leaves are kind of in clusters together. So we're observing where are the leaves, rhyme or reason. So what dulls the green? Usually a red will dull it if you want to, but um, a duller blue maybe would add to it. So I'm just looking at this kind of like there's a whole bunch of leaves down in here. A little bit bigger brush stroke maybe. And maybe a movement a little bit there. Sometimes you just get tired of painting, right? Same thing. So these strokes were a little bigger. So when I'm layering, I can add smaller ones. So hopefully this begins to help you learn about the wisteria tree. What do you notice about it? Does it remind you of anything? I'd love to have wisteria blooming. I think it'd be gorgeous, but it doesn't, I don't think it grows well in Florida because of the temperatures here. Probably up north it grows. And if you think of, China and Japan, they have winters. Florida doesn't. Today it's actually, I think, low 80s, high 70s where I live now. And, well, it feels good because the humidity has kind of changed. So I don't know. That would be something maybe I would put in my nature journal. Like, why does it grow in different parts? Is it affected by heat? Can it tolerate heat? The strong sun here. So this is starting to give me like a base because it's not just one color, right? It's lots of values. And, when I'm painting certain things, I use a red screen or I get a black and white copy to kind of see the values. But I can see you can squint your eyes as well. Maybe we'll take a break and I can paint some of this so you can see it progressing and not having to do it. Sometimes it's fun though. I think students tell me they like to paint along with me. And then I can pick up some color into the trunk as well. Okay, so I filled in the wisteria with the different shades of paint. And then I added the sap green, added a little bit warm blue to it, and tinted the vase a little bit. So to finish the nature journaling part here, so I did put an artist tape um, It's like a 3/8. It's not quite a half inch. Let's see. I'm careful because sometimes it can peel up these sketchbook pages. This is one of the Stillman Burns. I really like theirs. I like using the tone paper a lot too, but I thought this was such a kind of a bright tree. Um, so it's a little stylized, but it helped me kind of understand the tree. And I did notice that this sometimes as the trees grow and get bigger, they have to repot. So I'm not quite sure if it's a different tree or if it was regrown. So then what I like to do is I use different compositions. So this one I just take my grid ruler, and it's about a half inch. And what's nice is the grid just matches up nicely. So it's not exact. Sometimes I'm off. Sometimes I'll use washi tape. Um, I did for a while, and it kind of perks up if you need a little color. Many people do pencil or ink work. I really like a combination of ink, watercolor, and gouache. There. So that kind of pulls it together, and I can put a border color down. Uh, let's just add some little bit of shadow. Let me just, this is just some Payne's Gray from my palette, kind of watered down a little bit. I'm sure some of these have fell to the ground. So I'm trying to think of, do I want to show some example of maybe the flower up here? So I could draw it. Let's see. I thought it was out of, I've taken some botany classes that really helps me to be able to know when I'm looking at. Sometimes there's some classes on it. Helps helps me know what I'm looking at. Let's see. A little bit something extra could and then paint that in. So same colors, uh, no additional really colors there. Yeah, maybe a pale yellow. See, this is real pale. So we kind of have that in there. Um, there's some pods too that they're showing and twisted branches. And I did put a little bit of the leaves in here, but I think it indicates enough. And maybe some words. Just let's see, I really would like to make the lettering a little bolder. And let's see. Sometimes I like a neutral color on the border. Let's see. And then I just take water and spread that out. I studied design and have a degree in design, so layouts were part of. So I do like laying that out. So I think that's good. I could go in there and pencil some of the wisteria, or I could add, let's see, it seems to be, um, you know, because it's kind of viney looking, you can see some more of that in there. But I think I learned a lot about the wisteria. I'm glad I was able to draw up the trunk and then kind of see the blossom. Kind of almost looks like a bird there. Might have to ink it a little bit more, kind of to pop it a little bit. Kind of shows a little bit of the form of the petals a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed doing it today. And if you liked it and benefited from it, please like it and subscribe. And hopefully, I will pick another tree to study. But in the meantime, if you want to post what you did, post it on my Facebook page, Elaine and Bergstrom. Feel free to comment underneath the images or the posts. And let me know what your favorite tree is, and maybe we can do it next. Thanks.